Hey guys, ho ho ho, this is Kathy with Kathy's Crafty Creations and DIYs, and I am glad that you came this way to my channel. I am tickled pink. I look horrible today, so I decided that I would do this little disguise so you can't see how bad I look. Ho ho ho, isn't that cool? I have some Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and Amazon DIYs for you today in my big old red bag on the back of my sleigh. So let's get on with it and let's see what I got cracking. All right, we start off with DIY number one. I have a candy cane wreath form from Dollar Tree, and I have this microfiber towel that came from Dollar Tree. I open the towel up and I lay it down with the fuzzy side face down. And what I plan to do is take this towel and cut out the shape of the candy cane, and we're going to wrap the candy cane in the microfiber towel. I have a terrible habit of not wearing my little silicone sleeves that goes over my fingers, and I burnt the far out of myself really bad. It blistered up. It was in 2 spots and it was terrible, and you'll see in just a second I'm showing my wound. Oh, it was horrible. There it is. You can't really even see it, but my whole finger was like weeping. It was terrible. It was the worst burn I've had. Now my hot glue gun goes up to like, I think 400 degrees, and I have it turned up all the way, which is a big no-no. But after I had burnt myself, I was scared to death to touch this thing. You can see me like barely trying to touch it. I mean, it burnt me in 2 spots. It was horrible. So I go all the way around the wreath form, and basically I just pulled the microfiber towel as tight as I could and hot glued it down. And I noticed here that when I was filming, I didn't realize that the whole candy cane wasn't in the picture. I'm sorry for that, but you can see what I'm doing. I picked this fabric, or I'm sorry, this ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby last year. I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. But I wanted to show you that you can use the different ones from Dollar Tree. There's several different kinds that would go great with this. You don't have to use this one. This is just the one that I saw. There's the one from Dollar Tree that I think would look really good with it. And then there's one that's kind of like kind of more see-through and holy than that one. Also, I took my mesh out just to give it a little bit of sparkle. This is a big roll of mesh. I think it come from Hobby Lobby, I'm pretty sure. But they sell the same mesh at Dollar Tree, except for it's in small little things. Which the small rolls would actually be better than this great old big heaping roll that I used, because it was problematic to get it all the way around that cane right. But if it was small, like the ones from the Dollar Tree, I would have had much better success. But this was just to bring a little sparkle to it. You don't have to use this. I finally figured it out and just kind of laid the fabric down. I cut off a decent sized piece, and there was no rhyme or reason to what I did. I just put it down there at the bottom as tightly as I could, and I just kind of rolled it up. It was nothing special because I figured once that I rolled it up, you're not really going to be able to see the imperfections because we're going to put that red ribbon around it anyway. So I just took my hot glue gun wherever I thought that it needed a little bit of glue, and I glued it around and kept trying to get it tighter and tighter. And all the while I was scared to death to touch this thing because I was afraid that I was going to burn myself again. So I was really careful with what I did. And you can see here I wrapped it way too much, so I took a couple of the layers off and just used a very small thin layer. 1 layer is plenty because we just wanted some sparkle. We didn't want to go crazy with it. And when you put the hot glue on this fabric, this mesh, it melted right through, so you have to use those little silicone things that I used there to hold it down. That thing that I'm using right there, those things are a lifesaver. They are in the makeup section at Dollar Tree. But you use those, it's silicone, it doesn't stick to anything, and just hold it down so the glue will stick. So once I got all that mesh on there, I took my red ribbon and I started at the back, and I just started rolling it upward in a motion like a candy cane looks. No rhyme or reason to this. It was very easy, very simple, and I like to do simple DIYs at times because beginners are looking at these videos and wanting to learn how to do this, and this is a very easy, very simple DIY. And then I just glued the last piece on there so it would stay. All right, so I purchased this boxwood sprig from Walmart and this Noel ornament from Dollar Tree. And I plan to put those on my candy cane, and so I looked to find my placement. So I took my sprigs of boxwood after I clipped them and put them the way that I wanted to, and I get my jute cord so that I can clip it off and put it around the sprig there, because I plan on putting that kind of in the center of the candy cane. I tie it real good and I clip the ends off. I take my black paddle wire or floral wire, whichever one you want to call it, and I take a pretty good size piece and I clip that off. And what I'm going to do is take those boxwoods and use that floral wire to hold it to the wreath. Then when I get that affixed, I take the Noel sign and I just put a little bit of hot glue on the back of that, and we put it right down on the candy cane wreath. So when I got everything fixed on there, I used a little bit of this spray snow from Dollar General, and I don't really like that too much. I wiped most of it back off. And that completes DIY number 1. It turned out beautiful. Now for DIY number 2, I took these oranges and I put them at a 200-degree oven for 4 hours, flipping them every hour. We are going to make a mason jar potpourri for someone special. We got some potpourri from the Dollar Tree. And here's my orange slices. They hardened up beautifully, and it said that they can last for several years. I've got some cinnamon sticks. I have some berries. They are fake berries. I have some peppermint and some pine cones. And I have some olive oil because they said that it burns slower and better. This came from the Dollar Tree also. And these are floating wicks. You will need to get these. They are from Amazon. They were just a couple of dollars. They are floating wicks. And this is pine sprigs that I got from outside. They're real pine sprigs. So you take the top off of your mason jar, open it up, and the first thing that we're going to do, oh, and by the way, you will need a skewer or a pencil or something to help you put this stuff in the position that you want it in. So I took my pine sprigs. These are the ones that came from my home, and I cut the very end of the stem off, and you just stick them down in there. This is a super easy DIY, and it's really beautiful. It makes a very inexpensive and beautiful and thoughtful gift. So I'm just putting my pine sprigs down in the mason jar, put my pine cone in there, the small pine cone, and I take off my berries because I want a couple of different little berries in there. And I popped those in there. I actually had to get to a point where I cut those to get them apart. And so I put those down in there at the placement that I wanted them. I took my skewer and used it to get everything at the correct placement. I simply cut off a few more of the pine sprigs because you want it pretty full, but not crammed full because you want enough room for your wick. I put my orange in there. and I put 2 cinnamon sticks in there, the whole cinnamon sticks. I broke a little bit of the peppermint off and put it in there. It's just for decoration, really, for the color. And then I opened up the potpourri and put a couple little pieces in there from that. And once I had everything the way that I wanted it, I took the first jar of olive oil and it took the whole jar and almost the second jar. I took my wick and I placed it inside, my little wick inside the little outward compartment there. It goes right in the center. And it comes with a little stick to pull your wick up. And all you do is just lay it right on the top. It's super, super simple. And once you have everything in the placement that you want, you light that sucker up and watch it go. They say it burns really slow. It's beautiful. So to finish up, because remember this is a gift for someone, I took the baker's twine and I just wrapped it around itself and made a knot. And then after that, I'm going to take and wrap it around a couple of times and just tie it back when I'm finished. Then I took the red berry garland that comes from Dollar Tree and I wrapped it around there a few times. And since it's a wire, you can just wrap it onto itself to tie it. And it became the most beautiful little gift and very thoughtful. I used this red and black plaid bow that came from Dollar General for $1. I just thought that it would be simple to use it. I put it on the front. And that's all there is to this gift, guys. It's very simple, very easy, and it's beautiful. It's very thoughtful. All right, guys, it's time for DIY number 3. It's going to be a snow sign that I got from the Dollar General, and I'm using this black Ceramicoat chalk paint, which all I can say is I did not like it. It was too thick, but I did use it. So I painted the S, N, and W with the black chalk paint. And my plan is to take the snowflake and use my cardstock paper to cover it. I went around and painted every little nook and cranny of this sign, and there was a lot of little nooks and crannies. So I had to use a small paintbrush on the, in between the N, the W. There was a few tight little spots there, and it took quite a while for me to get everything painted. I told you there was a lot of little nooks and crannies. Now it took me quite a while to get all this done, but I decided to paint the back side too, just so it would look more finished. This is what it looks like when everything was painted black. Isn't that beautiful? It's just very striking. So I take the cardstock that I chose. I got my Mod Podge. Of course, I got it everywhere. I'm telling you, I'm the messiest crafter known to man. And I just cut out a small square because we just needed that front piece covered. Figured the easiest way to do this was just to put Mod Podge all around the area that I needed to be covered, the snowflake. And then just put my little cardstock piece down on the top, which is what I did. And then you have to allow it to dry. This is from a sign that I had from back in the summer, and it was a sign that said like Luau, Paradise or something. It's one of those signs that points different directions. And I cut the ends off of those because we are going to make these little snowmen, and they're going to be standing up behind the word snow. There's 3 of them, and I was trying to figure out my placement, and I cut them as needed so that they would fit in behind the sign the way that I needed them to. I wanted a small snowman, a bigger size one, kind of like a family, almost like a mama, daddy, and a baby. That's the size that I wanted. So I got those laid out the way that I decided that they needed to go. And then I got my sanding sponge and I gave each one a good sanding where I had cut that off at the top. Then I gave each and every one of those a quick wipe with the baby wipe. I took my white chalk paint and I painted each and every one of those white. And I got my handy dandy dryer and dried each and every one of those. Now it's time to cut my cardstock around that snowflake that we have there. And I must say this was very tedious. It took a little while to get this done. There's times that it's best to have it turned on its back to do that. And at times it's best to cut from the front. Like I said, that snowflake was very tedious to get around. I used Mod Podge and my finger to get around those areas that did not cut perfectly. I mean, it was a pretty good cut and I sanded it down as well as I could, but it was kind of tough to get around that snowflake. I used my black chalkboard paint to get around any areas on that snowflake that just needed to be touched up, or any areas that had like minor imperfections. If you just paint them black, it just faded right in with the background. Now back to these three guys. We're going to paint the tops of them black because their hats are going to be black. So now it's time to draw the faces on them. I drew it with the pencil at first because I'm not a very good artist at all. And so I figured if I did with the pencil first, I could erase if I needed to. But I made their little faces. Then I took a black painter's marker, it's called. It's the painter's brand from Walmart, and it's a small, like thin line one. And I used it to color in the blacks of their eyes, their little carrot nose, and their mouths, and their eyebrows, just whatever their features are. I had purchased some boss wood. It's a little package from Hobby Lobby, and that's it. It's these are just a thin size stick that was in it, and I painted it black. And I'm just getting the size down for each of the little parts of the hat that goes across there. And that's the original color there of the boss wood, and it cuts like almost like foam or something. It's so easy to cut. So I took their little boss wood pieces that goes on the brim of the hat. That's what it's called. I kept forgetting that word. And I just hot glued the brim down on each of the snowman's hats. And what I wanted to do was take this cardstock and put it down for the brim of the hat because I thought it would be cute and it would tie in with that snowflake. So I took my Mod Podge and I put it on the brim of each hat, and then I put the little pieces of the cardstock down. And when I finished, I took each of my little snowmen and I put them on the back of the sign and figured out the placement that I wanted them, and I just hot glued each one down. I wanted some sort of scarf for my little snowman, so I took some red and black gingham ribbon, the small ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I tied it around the necks of the two larger snowmen, And the small one in the middle, I just took and hot glued the very front piece on, and a piece that was flipping up to make it look like it was blowing in the wind. And I took my scissors and I cut little slits on each of the ends to make it look like a real scarf. And guys, right now is a perfect time for me to ask you if you would give me a big thumbs up on this video if you like it. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe and become a part of our little family here on YouTube. I would love to have you. I took that little sack of pine cones that comes from the Dollar Tree, and I put one on each of the scarves of the snowman. And that gave it an added touch. It was so cute. Then I took a star that comes from the Dollar Tree also, and I decided to paint it white. And when I painted it, I put it right in the middle of that star. And I took a little bit of that black chalkboard paint, and I went around my snowman to kind of distress it a little. And then I painted their little nosies orange. And I was totally out of the view of the camera, so you couldn't see. And I took a piece of these sprigs that I got from Amazon. It was like a little pine cone and red berries. And I decided to put this on the two big snowman's hats. Then I took a red and brown button and put those two together and stuck it on the little one in the middle's hat. It's so cute. And they are a happy little family, as cute as can be. Alright, my fourth and final DIY is going to be a beaded garland. I took these wooden beads that I got from Amazon, and I put them in a baggie, put some red just acrylic paint in there. You close the baggie up and you just kind of move it around and squish it around with your hands, get it all wet. And then when it's all coated, you just dump it out on wax paper and let it dry. And that's how I got the red, and that's also how I got the white. And I'm going to use this ornament that I purchased at Walmart for $1.98 for 4 of them. They're the cutest ornaments ever, and I haven't used any of them, so we're going to use it on our beaded garland. Some of these beads, when the paint dried, it closed up the little hole that's in the bead, so that's why I'm using a needle. Okay, I really sped this up so it would go along quicker. All I did was I took my jute twine and I took my needle and I took some tape and put it on the very end of the jute twine, and I would do 3 red, 3 white, 3 red, 3 white, all the way down until I was satisfied with the size of the garland. And when I got to the end of the garland, I took my little ornament that came from Walmart and just attached it to the end. Now it's time to make the tassel. I took it and wrapped it around my hand about 12 times, and then I just tied a knot in that. And then I tied that onto the end of the tassel, and then I made the little thing at the top, you have to tie it, and then you cut the very end of your tassel and cut it off evenly, and that's basically it. That's my tassel. My tassels aren't perfect, but I am very proud of it. When it was all said and done, it was beautiful. Now it's time to see everything all together. There's the tassel. It turned out really pretty. And then here's my little snowman and my candy cane. The snowman again, which I think is beautiful, and the candy cane. Let's not forget the potpourri. It's such a beautiful, inexpensive, nice gift to give to someone. And guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, I want to ask you again, please subscribe and hit that bell and hit all so you can see all my videos. Y'all have a blessed day.